This happened during a cold night in 2017. It was probably about 10 p.m. or so. I was on my way home and stopped at a Burger King that was maybe 5 minutes away. When I got there, I parked and went inside to order. It wasn't very busy at all. I was inside the restaurant for maybe 5 minutes, give or take. Then I left to go back to my car. When I was leaving, that's when I remember seeing a guy standing outside for the first time. There was a man standing just outside next to the building, but maybe 15 feet down from me. He was kind of just standing there, and as I walked to my car, I could tell he was starting to walk after me. I got to my vehicle and entered it, but then saw in my mirror the man was now only a few feet away from my car and walking closer. He then came over to my driver's window. I rolled it down just a little bit and asked if I could help him. The man said yes and told me that he was freezing. It was winter time and it was really cold out. The man was wearing a jacket, but I guess he was still cold. If you were outside for long enough, no matter if you had a jacket on or not, you would probably get cold. The man asked me if he could sit in my car to warm up, just for a couple of minutes. My answer was no, pretty quickly. I didn't even really have to think about it at all. I mean, who would let a random stranger sit in their car just to warm up? I was trying to get home to eat, and I didn't want to wait around. Plus, I didn't know who this guy was, where he was from, or where he was going. I also realized looking back that if the man did just want to warm up so bad, why didn't he just go inside the Burger King instead of standing outside? After I told the man no, he tried to persuade me. I rolled up my driver's window all the way as he was still talking. Then, I started backing out of my parking space. The parking lot only had 3 other cars in it scattered around. They were a ways away, and I was parked across from the restaurant near a grassy area with a long line of bushes. As I was backing up, the man hit my driver's window with his fist. Then, I started to drive forward to leave, and the guy kicked my car. I saw 2 other men emerge from the bushes a short distance from where I had parked. Those 2 men ran at my car, and one of them reached it. All he was able to really do, though, is just hit my car. By then, I was driving faster. I remember pulling out of the parking lot and seeing 3 men running after me. They wouldn't be able to catch me on foot, though. I kept driving, and soon realized that I should call the police, which I did. I told them about the guys, but I never heard anything back, meaning they probably got out of there after I left. I made it home okay, and I also never saw the guys again after that. My car didn't really have any damage to it, which I was also happy to see. I didn't go to that particular Burger King again for a while, though. To this day, I'm very certain that the man was just trying to get me to let him inside my car. Then the other 2 men would have come out of the bushes and done who knows what. I really hope they didn't do that to anybody else. Always be aware of your surroundings, especially at night. I worked at a Burger King up until a few months ago. I was a manager at a location in the US, and I worked there for a total of almost a year. For my entire time working there, we were always understaffed. One night, I was working until close, which was 10 p.m. We were short that night, and I was kept really busy. We had lots of customers until about 7 or 8, then things quieted down. By the time it was 9:30, there were just 3 of us working. It was me, Spencer, and Michelle. We didn't get any customers during the last half hour. I remember that Michelle and Spencer were in the back. I was at the register, and I saw a car entering the parking lot. We closed in like 2 minutes, and I had a bad feeling. It's always frustrating when people come in right before close. If they were going to come here right before close, I was hoping they would at least do so in the drive-thru. The vehicle was an SUV. They parked it on the other side of the parking lot, kind of far away, instead of right by the door. Nobody got out of it immediately, though. Instead, the vehicle remained parked there. Soon, it became 10 p.m. I went over to lock the doors, as we were now closed. As I was approaching the doors, though, I saw several people start to get out of the vehicle. They were all men, and it looked to be 4 of them. The strange thing was that they all had backpacks on. I then realized that the men were all wearing masks as well. This was bad news. I hurried to finish locking the doors as fast as I could. Luckily, I was able to do so with about 10 seconds to spare. Then I moved away from the doors. The men all got to the doors and tried opening them, and when they couldn't get in, they started knocking on it. I started to hear one of the men speak, saying, "Excuse me, and could you please let us in?" I went to the back to let Spencer and Michelle know what was going on, so they wouldn't leave right now. There was still loud noises coming from the door of the men pounding on it. The pounding was getting louder. Then I returned to the front counter area, and I saw one of the men was at another window. Soon I started hearing knocking from all directions. There was a man banging on the front door, 2 others banging on different side windows, and one man was even banging on the drive-through window. They kept pounding on them, and Spencer and Michelle came out to see who the guys were. I advised us not to go near any of the windows, and we decided to hide in the bathrooms for safety. We could still hear the loud banging as we were in there. We called the police and feared that the men might try to break in. About 2 minutes later, our fears came true. We heard breaking glass. We couldn't tell what direction it was coming from though. Luckily, the bathroom that we were in had a locking door on it. Shortly after the sounds of breaking glass, we heard shouting coming from inside from men. I really don't remember what they said, and we were all really scared. I think that the men wanted to know where we were. None of us bothered to say anything back to them though. I thought about yelling to them that I had called the police to try to get them to leave. I didn't though. The men were inside, and we could hear their voices and them moving around for several minutes. All of us were huddled in the back corner of the bathroom. At one point, we heard one of the men walk close to the door. He then tried opening it. After it wouldn't open, he banged on it a couple of times, but then walked away. The men remained inside until finally we could hear sirens in the distance. That's when we heard the men shouting once again, and then things got quiet. I was assuming that meant because they left, but we were not going to take any chances and leave the bathroom early. We stayed in there until we heard voices saying police. When the 3 of us emerged, it looked like the restaurant had been turned upside down. Things were really messed up, and we could see the broken glass from the window. The men had left, but we were told that police were currently in pursuit of their car. They ended up catching them a short time later. The restaurant was closed until it could be repaired. Michelle said afterwards that she had seen several men walk inside of the restaurant earlier that night when we were really busy. She said that the men just sat down in the corner and never ordered anything. We didn't know for sure because those men didn't have masks on like the others did, but it seems like they could have been the same ones. I hadn't noticed because of how busy we were. I'm just glad all of us were okay. This happened about a year ago. I went to a Burger King with my friend Emily. It was probably about 8 p.m. and we sat down in a booth to eat. Emily and I were just chatting and joking around, having a good time like always. We had been there for maybe 20 minutes when a man who was a Burger King employee walked over to us. He was sort of average height, had a little bit large build, and had dark hair. Immediately, I was wondering what he wanted. Burger King is not the type of restaurant where you have a waiter. It's not even the kind of restaurant where people usually come over and ask how the food is or anything like that. It's just a fast food place. He said hi, looking at both me and Emily. We said hi to him, and then there was an awkward silence. He started having like a casual conversation with us. I remember he said something like, "How are you guys doing?" or "What are you guys doing?" We were both confused and just told him that we were eating and talking to each other. He kept hanging around though. He was standing right next to the table. That's when Emily asked what the guy wanted. He acted all insulted and was like, "What did I do?" I thought he might be joking, and that's when the guy helped himself to a seat. He scooted in and sat right next to me on the bench of the booth. We sort of laughed it off, but I know I was secretly wanting him to leave, and I thought it was really uncomfortable. I'm sure Emily felt the same way too. Then, he asked us if we could go order him some food. That's when he started getting rude. We asked him to leave, and he just kept sitting there, and we argued with him for a while. It wasn't like a big scene or anything, and we weren't shouting, but we were going back and forth. Finally, he angrily got up and left us at the table. We watched him walk away and out the door. He'd been talking to us for a total of almost 10 minutes. Emily and I were really annoyed by this. We decided to go up and complain to let them know that one of the employees had been harassing us. When we walked up there was a woman behind the counter. I said to her that there was an employee that had been really rude to us. The woman at the register looked annoyed. She said, "Yeah, and he was fired earlier." She went on to say that he had been fired just earlier that night when she had thought that he left. The area we were sitting in was not visible to the front counter. She apologized and gave us a gift card for the trouble. We were also offered free ice cream. We accepted the offer and went back to sit down in the booth. We were there for maybe 10 more minutes, and then we left. After we got outside, we started walking to my car. I had drove from my house, which was really close by. When we were walking to my car, we saw the same employee step out of one of the cars that was parked in the parking lot. He started approaching us. Without giving it a second thought, Emily and I both sprinted for my car. As we did, he started running towards us. We got to my car as quickly as possible and got inside and locked the doors. It was probably the fastest amount of time that we possibly could have done it in. He reached the car just moments later. He tried opening Emily's door on the side. It was locked, though. I backed away and left the parking lot. I was afraid that the guy would follow us home, but thankfully he didn't. This was definitely my scariest experience at a Burger King. I'm not sure why the guy was fired from Burger King, but he clearly had some problems. What his intentions were, I don't know, but hopefully Emily and I don't see him again.